Whoa. Mike Muse is an industrial engineer, a music executive, a political architect. He breaks down the intersection of politics and pop culture. This is the Mike Muse Show.
Walk me through a football Sunday for you.
Oh my God, man! I'm gonna tell you,
can you walk me yours?
crazy.
I know what mine looks like, right? And, mine consists of sitting on the couch, maybe ordering some Grubhub or some Postmates, and texting my homies.
Oh, you talking about when I played?
No, just now.
Okay.
Now, what when you're not on the air, when you're not commentating, right? When you're not giving your perspective, right? Do you sit around and watch, or maybe on Monday night or Thursday night? Do you watch it with your homies, your friends, your family? Are you ordering pizza like us?
Yes, of course.
Are you having like some chicken wings? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, like Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. I sit around with family and we just watch the game that I love playing. And there's an appreciation for the guys that's playing today, but it's a different era. Yeah. Back in my day, it's like when those two helmets collided on Monday Night Football. Yeah. If I felt like it was time for those gladiators to come out. Yes. And it was going to be, it was going to be a physical contest, man. Yes, it is. And, football is a little bit different now because they protect players more and they have so many rules. But, yeah, it's all about just, being together as a family. Yeah. And, supporting your team. I love that. And my team right now, they're 8-0. The San Francisco 49ers. Yeah. The only undefeated team.
So once a 49ers, always a 49ers.
Yes, sir.
Now, listen, I made a switch, Jerry Rice.
What?
I did. So I was a Bears as I started out the conversation. Uh-huh. Now I'm Baltimore Ravens.
Ooh, Lamar Jackson
is going off right now, Jerry. He's going off. He is going off right now. So that is my guy.
Man, I'm telling you.
He snatched me from all the other teams, man. I was going with Mahomes for a minute. Yeah. Unfortunately, Mahomes is injured. But when Lamar came out and started balling against the GOAT, Tom Brady, go blue. I'm Michigan,
man, he's a real deal,
right?
Man. I mean, Lamar's a real deal.
Bruh, I was like, I never thought I would ever root for Baltimore Ravens in my entire whole life. Right, but now Lamar Jackson has completely taken that from me altogether. And so to watch all the way.
Yeah, and to watch this guy in his second year, and you see the composure and you see the leadership. Yeah. And John Harbaugh, right before the game, he walked down, he smiled at him. Yeah. He smiled at him, and Lamar looked back at him and smiled and said, "Hey, we got this."
He's a future, brother.
Yeah, he is the future,
I'm going to let you go
man.
back and ask more questions. I want to make sure you're able to come back. I don't want you to be too mad at me. Okay. But in the final, okay, obviously the 49ers going all the way. You're going to say that. But if the 49ers doesn't go all the way, who do you think is going to go all the way to the end? Are you rocking with me, Jerry? Are we walking? Can we be comrades on this one?
What? They keep saying that it's going to be the Rams. It could be Seattle.
Yeah.
Then, you got Dallas and the other team, Philadelphia, coming out of the other conference. I seriously think it's probably going to be between – and I'm going with my Niners.
Yes.
Coming out of the NFC. The AFC, I think it's going to come down to Baltimore or Kansas City.
Yes, my hero did not let me down. My hero rocked with me. Sometimes they say never meet your heroes because you'll be disappointed.
But you cannot count those Patriots out.
Jerry, come on.
You can't do it.
I just said you're my hero.
As long as Tom Brady is still behind center, but I still think it's going to come down to Kansas City and Baltimore.
We'll be right back, folks. Peace.
We are the Bears, shuffling crew, shuffling on down, doing it for you. We're so bad, we know we're good, blowing your mind like we knew we would. We're just strutting for fun, strutting our stuff for everyone. We're not here to start no trouble. We're just here to do the Super Bowl shuffle.
Well, they call me Sweetness, and I like to dance. Running the ball is like making more mans. We had the goal since training camp to give Chicago a Super Bowl champ. And we're not doing this because we're greedy. The Bears are doing it to feed the needy. We didn't come here to look for trouble. We just come here to do the Super Bowl shuffle.
This is Speedy Willie, and I'm world class. I like running, but I love to get the pass. I practice all day and dance all night. I gotta get ready for the Sunday fight. Now, I'm as smooth as a chocolate swirl. I dance a little funky, so watch me, girl. There's no one here that does it like me. My Super Bowl shuffle will set you free.
I'm Samurai Mike, I stop 'em cold. Part of the defense, big and bold. I've been jamming for quite a while, doing what's right and setting the style. Give me a chance, I'll rock you good. Nobody messing in my neighborhood. I didn't come here looking for trouble. I just came to do the Super Bowl shuffle.
We are the Bears, shuffling crew, shuffling on down, doing it for you. We're so bad, we know we're good, blowing your mind like we knew we would. We're just strutting for fun.
it's your boy Mike Muse. Welcome to the episode of the Mike Muse Show. I am so excited you have joined us today for this very important conversation that we have coming up. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you are in New York City, if you're in the Midwest, you know it is cold outside. And there is no better time than to be, when it's cold outside, to be inside your home by a nice fire. I don't have a fireplace, but I thought I would say it. I grew up with a fireplace, but I do not have one in my New York City home, right? I think I have a space heater that blows out fire. You know, it's not like being home with a nice cup of soup, something warm and cozy to keep you warm on the inside. But unfortunately, that is not the reality for a lot of individuals in America and really across the world. But because we're here in America, I'm going to focus on America just for right now. Our homeless rates have increased tremendously. We see that happening right now in Los Angeles, California, with Skid Row and how that's advancing. We're seeing on the streets of New York City. We see it in the streets of our nation's capital of Washington, D.C. You just can't escape it. It's correlated to a bunch of things: economics, unemployment, even the future of work. You know, I love talking about technology and future work and how it's doing job displacements. Some of us are underemployed if you do have degrees, and some of us are losing our jobs to manufacturing. Union jobs are going away, and so as a result, we're leaning more on resources and government resources on that, and nonprofits and entities that service the community. And so for that conversation, I couldn't think of a better person to join us today to kind of help us lead through this conversation and like really why our nation is experiencing such an increase in homeless rates, which therefore impacts hunger, but also too as well in terms of how our government is really thinking about these resources and services from SNAP all the way on down. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the Mike Muse Show, the dynamic, the amazing, the talented, the change agent, Madam Margarette Purvis, President and CEO of the Food Bank for New York City. What's happening, Margaret?
You've got me more excited.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yo, I'm so happy that you are back again for the second time.
So am I.
Yeah.
So am I.
You killed it last time, and you killed it meaning you just gave such really great explanations on food pantries and homelessness and hunger that we're experiencing in America. So I talked about individuals being underemployed because we always talk about unemployed.
Yes.
Right? But
Yes.
I think people don't recognize that hunger and homeless doesn't just relegate itself to one class of individuals.
Absolutely not.
Talk to us about that.
Well, I mean, the idea of the homeless man, you know, the guy, you know, people used the terms when we were growing up, oh, the hobo. No. Homeless now in New York City is like just a family.
Yeah.
It's just a New Yorker. It's just a person who does not have enough money to pay the too high rent.
Yeah.
Homeless right now, New York homeless sometimes now looks like a person who now is in an apartment in Newark.
Yeah.
You know, right now our homeless families, we don't even have enough shelters. And they're being evicted from New York City and they're being sent to apartments in New Jersey, Connecticut. I was just on the news just last night talking about the fact that some of these landlords are getting rent for the year.
Wow.
For these families. So it feels like there's just like a whole, the issue is so big and the response is so reactive and it's also very expensive. It's hard to believe that in all the money that we've spent that we have not had an opportunity to come up with a better plan. Like maybe even like better legislation that says control the rent. Because I think with the homeless situation now, we talk about homeless, but we don't talk about the fact that someone is charging too much money for rent. And New Yorkers should be the one to speak up about this because right now in just Brooklyn alone, I bring this example up enough because I need New Yorkers to get fired up about this. Why are Brooklynites paying twice the national average for rent? Why is that happening? And it's something that we should be louder about. And every American should understand it is not just a New York City issue because our president was once a New York City landlord. So that culture is now in D.C. So there is a reason for us to take this very seriously. And I think also just all of us in America, New York City, we've just got to get out of this idea of who is poor, who is hurting, and who is in need. Because as long as we keep this shame, as long as someone is able to make you feel bad about poverty, you will never get the economic boot off of your neck. It's never going to happen because you've internalized something that is not your fault. And I think that's probably, when we talk about fighting hunger, I'm not fighting it with a sword. I'm not even fighting it with a can of beans. I'm probably fighting ignorance and judgment more than anything else.
Well, it's also something about ignorant judgment, and the reason why I wanted to lean in, and I'm using phrases like underemployed, is because I feel like when we think about homelessness and we think about those who are hungry and those who are visiting food pantries, such as the Food Bank of New York City, we think of individuals that, you know, it's because of them they caused their situation and circumstance, right? It's because of those we do this whole xenophobia, this othering, right?
Yes.
They may smell funny, they look funny, they look very tethered, and so therefore this could never happen to me, this could never happen to my family, not realizing that in this day and age of economics and the way our industry is going, the stock market, right, the rising interest rates, the cost of living, minimum wage, underwage, we are all essentially a paycheck to 2 paychecks to 3 paychecks away of having to visit a service such as yours. And so I think we have to really wrap our minds around changing the narrative of it, because if we see it as that, then we'll be willing to, okay, how do we address the whole? Margaret, for me, it's no different, I'm just thinking about this out loud right now, than the opioid crisis, right?
Yes.
There was all this war on drugs, right? Crack and marijuana, it was criminalization of it. But then once it started hitting the white areas of Connecticut and the white suburbs, then it became a health crisis. So then it became an opioid crisis, right? So now all hands on deck to figure out how can we now fix now this drug problem that is now a medical issue, right? And so how do I have
we're
that
gonna have to
right
call
to look at-
homeless like what a domicile security issue. I mean,
Right.
I don't know, but
Literally.
listen, if you're at Big Mama's house or your aunt's house and you can't afford to go anywhere else, you are homeless.
Yeah.
That's just the truth. You may not call it that name. If you are couch surfing, if you've been at this friend's house, you are homeless. We create these things and they make no sense. The reality is, because this thing is so about math. The wages, people can say, oh, get a job. Well, they have a job. The wages are not keeping up with the expense of living in our city. That's it. The food is about 25% more expensive than it was even before the recession. In the poorest neighborhoods in New York City, an apple does not cost the same around the city. Poorest neighborhoods, you're going to pay more for an apple, and it's not even going to be great quality. So this is about math. It is not about something you've done wrong. It's that the numbers aren't adding up, Mike. And it is as simple as that.
And it's also, too, reflective, metaphorically, too, as well. We're talking about New York City really heavily, but New York City is just emblematic of every urban city that is happening in the country, and also, too, rural. Like, we really forget about the rural communities, too, as well, and how their apple, right, costs differently. And also, too, the food deserts and insecurities that they're experiencing in terms of, if you're rural, how far you have to go to get fresh produce, right, into a nice, decent, quote-unquote, grocery store.
If you
and
even
then
can
urban, urban, dense, concentrated area, it's a difficulty of finding fresh fruit, and then there's a markup for that fresh fruit from once it is found. There's another area that I want to go into, and we're going to do more deep dives, and you guys have some fantastic reports and studies that you guys have done, so we are going to get into that. But I think it's important that we contextualize the conversation, right? So we already talked about, like, changing the narrative of what homeless looks like and what the face of hunger looks like. We kind of talked about right now, like, the underemployed when it comes to that. But now I want to talk about immigration, because people don't really recognize immigration and how that really works out. We did a really dope show recently, the Mike Muse show, and back in December, we had climate, and really talked about how climate change has really impacted migrant patterns, right? Because the lands are drying up and farming is changing, and so people are in search of new land and countries in order to farm. So talk to us about how immigration has a correlation to hunger, right? And for those having to get resources.
Well, I think right now what we're looking at is that hunger is not just experience. Bad policy is actually creating hunger. And when it comes to immigrant populations, it really is that it's a fear thing. It's the idea that ICE is going to come or ICE is going to descend, or that if you accept a benefit, if you accept help for food, it will get in the way of you being able to continue on the path to citizenship. The idea of the public charge. You are a public charge. This is a negative connotation. The problem with these things is that the benefits that we're talking about, that people end up truly taking their names off the roll, Mike. They're that fearful that they will not be able to become a citizen, that they will say, you know what, then I'm not going to take these things that I'm eligible for. The thing that makes them eligible, and this is the part that makes me so angry, that these benefits were not things that were coming to them. It was coming to their children. who are often American children. These are American kids. And it makes me so upset because what we're really talking about, while we are maligning the adult who may have gone to the store with the benefit, the reality is that American children who are born into immigrant households are being treated differently.
That's it.
And they are Americans. And let me pull myself together because it makes me very angry. That this is criminal. It is the most anti-American thing that we could ever do. And you guys, we are bargaining and playing games with food. When we are throwing food away every second of the day, it is grotesque.
It is. It's sickening, right? And we talk
Don't
about
get me started,
living.
Mike.
No.
Don't get me
That's
started.
why I love when you come, because you bring such a passion to this space and around this narrative in ways that needs to be discussed. Because we talk about homelessness as a very esoteric data thing, but it's not that.
And
It's
they're
human
coming, let me
existence.
tell you, they're taking their names off the roll. So then they're coming to soup kitchens and food pantries. There's no reason for them to be at these programs. And the charities where they're going to go to a large charity.
Yeah.
When you are in fear, you're not going to go to the big gleaming charity. You're going to go to the one that's in the little basement of the church that you feel safe at. That program has no money. They have no resources, but they feel safe. So they're going to these programs. And what we're now hearing from soup kitchens and food pantries who we interviewed is that they're saying things like they are changing their hours. They're taking the hours off of the assigns because people are so afraid that ICE may come and get them from the lines that all of our members are just changing things about the way they do business. We now have some of these programs that are saying we are now delivering food to the house. One of my members told me, I have not even seen the family. They won't open the door. But I know that they have children in the home, so we go and deliver the food. But this is happening right here in New York City. We have examples of this happening in Queens, in Brooklyn, in Staten Island, the Bronx. It's not happening in one place. When so we're talking to my my communications leader, Joanna, and we were looking to try to bring together some folks who would bring up to the warehouse. We're going to do an interview. And the first question some of our members said to us was, wait, they're not going to say the name of my charity, right?
Wow.
So the fear is being transferred. So the folks who are just there to help, they are nervous that if I say it's my charity, would they follow me? I mean, it is, this is happening in our country. And for what? For what?
So
For what
Margaret,
purpose?
you're leading me to a whole different realm of thinking now, because I think what we're not recognizing, just thinking about the under-resourced, the underemployed, really thinking about immigration, the model seems to be changing for food banks and for soup kitchens. It seems like the role is expanding.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is I'm thinking about teachers, right?
Yes.
And so there was a time period where teachers literally just came in and taught math. 1
Yes.
plus 1 is 2.
Yes.
But now you have teachers who not only have to teach 1 plus 1 is 2, but now have to look out for abuse. They now have to look out for hunger, right? So now
Yes.
they're becoming social workers before they can even become
Absolutely.
algebra teachers, right? So
Mike,
with
you've hit it on the head. I was just talking to Danielle Moss Lee. She is the president of Oliver Scholars. And she said to me, our clients are not single issue beings. You hear Rudy Crew, the president of Medgar Evers, Brian Johnson of Mercy College. They're all telling us, do you know how much we have to do to deal with hunger and poverty before we can ever even get to educating anyone? Because people carry the weight of hunger and poverty with them on the journey. They're trying to achieve goals and activities, and the weight of it, Mike, they take it everywhere. We pulled together something, probably one of the most exciting things. I realized I kind of needed news stories, and I needed to hear some other things, because, I love a food bank, but, the world's bigger than a food bank,
Yeah.
But I pulled together this thing. We called it Gathering at the Big Table. And we brought in all of these organizations who are not considered, traditional hunger organizations. It was colleges. It was youth development organizations. And I tell you, and I'm so glad we pulled it together, because what I never want people to think, and I think a lot of people believe this, is that hunger is a possession of a food bank. We may have a building with shelves and all kinds of food, but hunger is with us everywhere. People are taken, and as long as we keep the story about the pounds of food delivered and we did this, it bastardizes. It tries to shrink down something that's growing by the second. So I wanted to bring other people to the table to say, well, we want to be very clear.
Yeah.
We are not the owners of hunger. Tell me your story. And that's what we heard across the room. We had groups that deal with seniors. Allison Nickerson from Live On, who talked about when a senior is facing hunger, she says it's like you watch them shrink.
Wow.
Because the isolating piece, the embarrassment of it. You know, there are people who are listening right now who do not know that their grandmother is struggling.
Wow.
You may not know that you came to her apartment, you were probably complaining that it was too hot, and the meal she made for you may be it.
Wow.
You know, I always tell people, you go visit an older person, go look in the refrigerator, go look in the counters. Just go look. Because they are a proud generation, and they will rarely let you know that they're hurting.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Because it's almost a sense of failure.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
I have lived
absolutely.
to be 70, 80 plus, and I don't have food in my refrigerator, right?
Well, imagine,
and there's
look at
a
how you have to
shame
hump.
associated with it.
Look at how you have to hump just to pay to live in the city.
Yeah.
Imagine being on a fixed income in a city where if it's fixed against you. The expenses are fixed up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And imagine trying to live on a fixed income, something that was supposed to last you.
Yeah.
Of course there's shame in that.
So you're doing a great job moderating this conversation. I don't know who is the host here right now, right? Because I am like learning,
you fired me up. You fired
learning
me up.
as we go. You're leading me to a really great place I really wanted to talk with you about. As right now in our government discourse, there's lots of conversations around SNAP,
Yes.
right? And SNAP benefits being cut. Talk to us about your position on SNAP and where we are with that and how you see that as a detriment.
Well, our first piece is to make sure people understand that SNAP really is the first line of defense. You know, when it comes to the battle against hunger, SNAP is your greatest gladiator. You know, if it's on a stage of performers, SNAP is Beyonce. The rest of us really and truly are background singers, all of us. It allows people to go to the grocery store. It allows them to not have to come to a pantry. I get that it's holidays and people want to go and volunteer. They want to put on their ugly sweater. They want to put on their corporate t-shirt and come and pack some things, and it feels great. But the reality is we can never forget, nobody wants to be at a pantry. Nobody should be at a pantry. Nobody should be at a soup kitchen. These are not good places to be. And people don't owe us the experience to make our heart feel good because, you know, they're there and they're providing that particular activity. However, these threats that we're seeing right now, I think are some of the worst things ever. We are now, I think, on the third attack. No, this actually is an attack because they've changed the rule. It's going to go into effect in April. The attack basically says, and it uses very clever marketing, the idea of able-bodied. You know, you call somebody able-bodied, but then you knock them down from the knees by then coming and saying, we're going to take the food away. So what this ABOD rule that's all over the news is basically saying is, you don't have a job, the punishment is going to be that in a 3-year period, you can only get help for 3 months. The people who are being targeted, they make about $570 a month. These are the people. Now, these people don't have children because that's the part that makes everybody feel better. These are not people with dependents. You know, but it's funny. So when you have a baby, you're a welfare queen, and you're just getting SNAP because you want to take. Well, these are young women, young men who didn't have children, and they're still wrong. So they're basically just wrong for being. They're wrong for being, and they're wrong for being poor. And we're going to punish them with the food, but they're calling it is to incentivize work. But the rule is coming out of the agriculture department. It's not coming out of employment or labor. Yeah. So I don't even understand.
Which, by the way, my audience knows I do a deep dive of this in the Agriculture Committee. The Agriculture Committee is the greatest committee that offers subsidies to farmers, right, and to white America, right? So white America is able to get away with the subsidies conversation through the lens of agriculture, through farming, and through crop insurance, right? But when then people of color and marginalized communities begin to do it, then we have those attributes as like those who can work, right? And those are welfare queens, and we become criminalized from the aspect of it, which also leads me to the next point that really infuriates me when it comes to this whole notion of you're able-bodied. able-bodied, right? This whole notion of put yourself up by your bootstraps, not really recognizing that we all got help along the way, right? I come from a middle-class background, but the only reason why I got to college is because I was exposed to it, right? I had a principal and guidance counselors and teachers who made sure that was a path that I was on, not because they had to force me to do it, because they kept throwing it down my face, right? Like, so for me, there was no other option but that, because it was constantly in my face. And so it was my family, it was my church community, it was my fantastic blue ribbon school of choice, high school that I went to, that put me on this great path of a great higher education program. So I didn't do it on my own, right? There was a team around me, right? So even if you do come from a privileged space and perspective, your parents, by the fact alone, being able to pay for your college education, that's a handout, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a place of that's a subsidy. That's a place of privilege.
Yes.
So we have to get away from this whole notion of put yourself up by your bootstraps, and then penalizing for those individuals who didn't have a blue ribbon school like I did, who didn't have two parents who made sure that it was never an option, who didn't have a pastor who made sure I went to University of Michigan, that was just his favorite school and I wanted to go to Stanford, right? Like all this education conversations alone on Saturdays and the weekends just made it part of my narrative, and so we have to be mindful of that. As we close, Margaret, there is a data and stat that I just found really triggering. Yes, you want to say something?
I do. We also want to listen, there are people who, I get it, people are jaded, and they don't want to hear anything about any poly sunshine. And they do feel, pull yourself up by bootstraps and all this kind of stuff. We also want to make sure this removal of SNAP is also an economic issue. That by making the rule, the Agriculture Department has also stripped cash out of your local economy. More than 10% of the national number, is found in this one city. $100 million that just got pulled out of our grocery stores. That's going to impact jobs. That's going to impact our city. We're going to feel that. So if you are not into that charitable space and you think all of this is a bunch of hoo-ha, let's just get down to at least dollars, because every American can understand and probably agree. Why would the federal government just be able to pull money out of our local economy? This rule also ties the hands of states, so that a state like New York used to have a waiver. We used to be able to say, well, we get that this is a rule. However, because of expense, because of whatever, our people can't survive with that. ABOT rule that was just approved removes states' waivers.
Wow.
So it really is quite gangster. It's quite gangster.
I mean, if you go to gangster, now it's more of a deep dive. Now I'm kind of getting into policy wonk, nerd-based politics aspect of it. Seeing how this is a Republican-controlled Senate, Republican-controlled, and the reason I said that is because the Senate Agriculture Committee is controlled by the Republican Party. Republicans are in charge of the Oval Office. They are more so states' rights.
Yes.
Right? And so they believe that the federal government should keep their hands out of the state's perspective. That is just a fundamental ideology of the Republican Party. It is a fundamental ideology. Yeah, so the fact that they are taking the way away from the states goes to the face of there's something else that's happening, that it's not about states. So then what is it? Right? We all know what it is. You can fill in the blanks from that. But I want to make sure that we end, because your team, they're fantastic. Shout out to Joanna. They made sure they sent me all the data, all the reports. So I think I would do your team a disservice if I didn't throw out one data point. You've been killing with the data. But something that really stood out to me specifically was this whole notion that the Food Bank for New York City's recent report found that 85% of your food pantries and soup kitchens reported an increase in first-time visitors last year. Talk to us just a little bit about what that signifies as we close this conversation. I thought that number was really poignant to end on.
It lets us know, A, that the issue is growing. It also shapes the profile of what vulnerability is. That you're going to be more vulnerable when you have children. There's more mouths to feed. You're going to be more vulnerable when you're a senior citizen. And you're going to be more vulnerable if you're part of a group that's being targeted by poor policy, meaning immigrants. And across the board, that's just what we saw with the numbers. And it also just goes to show, I mean, you guys were putting in more resources. We had trade mitigation products. We had so many resources. We certainly got a lot of food out. But the policies have to work with us. You know, you feel like you're constantly fighting against this horrific wave. But the policy has got to go hand in hand with the practices and the people. And we can actually truly fight hunger. And instead, we're just fighting a lot of malarkey. It seems like every single day.
Yeah. Well, Madam President, God bless you. You
bless you,
have
Mike.
a
I'm so proud of you,
I'm
Mike.
proud of you. You have a hell of a fight on your hand. You have a lot of work that you do. You are literally doing the work of God. So we support you anytime you want to come back on the Mike Muse Show. You have an open invitation anytime. I think we'll probably need to have more conversation as we begin to approach April, as we lead up to this. And so I think this is something we need to be targeted on. And then let's make sure that we do our job in centering this conversation around the 2020 election. And so we'll make sure we keep this conversation going in terms of how that looks like. So clearly there's a need. Yes. And so you're not making the ask, but I'm going to make the ask as my former fundraising life.
Yes,
right?
please.
How can people support the work of the Food Bank of New York City?
Well, anyone can go to our website, foodbanknyc.org. They can join our 10 Million Meals campaign because we certainly need the help. We have a generous donor who is matching every gift that we receive till the end of this year. And it's going to allow us to put more meals into the poorest neighborhoods at the poorest charity serving the poorest New Yorkers. So we really would love for anyone to join us, support. You can come and volunteer because you don't have money. It's okay. You got time, we'll take it. You can serve with your family. You can serve with your coworkers. But just join us because we need all the help we can get.
And what's your Twitter handle?
Oh, did I change my Twitter? It is Food Bank Prez is my Twitter handle. Foodbank_Prez. I'm looking at Joanna.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Joanna. I think that is right.
Yeah, Joanna's got you. As always, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you for the work that you do.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can always reach me at I am Mike Muse, MUSE on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Until then, we'll be right back. Peace. Hey.
I'm the punky QB known as McMahon. When I hit the turf, I've got no plan. I just throw my body all over the field. I can't dance, but I can throw the pill. I motivate the cats I like to tease. I play so cool, I aim to please. That's why you all got here on the double to catch me doing the Super Bowl shuffle.
I'm mama's boy Otis, one of a kind. The ladies all love me for my body and my mind. I'm slick on the floor as I can be, but ain't no sucker gonna get past me. Some guys are jealous of my style and class. That's why some end up on that. I didn't come here looking for trouble. I'm just getting down to the Super Bowl shuffle.
They say Jimbo is our man. If Jimmy can't do it, I sure can. This is Steve, and it's no wonder. I run like lightning, pass like thunder. So bring on Atlanta, bring on Dallas. This is for Mike and Papa Bear Hallis. But I'm not here to feathers ruffle. I just came here to do the Super Bowl shuffle.
I'm L.A. Mike and I play it cool. They don't sneak by me cause I'm no fool. I fly on the field and get on down. Everybody knows I don't mess around. I can break 'em, shake 'em any time of day. I like to steal it and make 'em pay. So please don't try to beat my hustle, cause I'm just here to do the Super Bowl shuffle.
We are the Bears shuffling crew, shuffling on down, doing it for you. We're so bad, we know we're good, blowing your mind like we knew we would. You know we're just strutting for fun, strutting our stuff for everyone. We're not here to start no trouble, we're just here to do the Super Bowl shuffle.
The sack man's coming, I'm your man. Dent is a quarterback slow, he's gonna get bent. We stop the run, we stop the pass. I like to dump guys on net. We love to play for the world best fan. You better start making the Super Bowl plan. But don't get ready or go through any trouble unless you practice the Super Bowl shuffle.
It's Gary here, and I'm Mr. Clean. They call me Hitman, don't know what they mean. They throw it long and watch me run. I'm on my man, one-on-one. Buddies, guys, cover it down to the bone. That's why they call us the 46 zone. Come on, everybody, let's scream and yell. We're gonna do the shuffle, then ring your bell.
You're looking at the frizz, I'm the rookie. I may be large, but I'm no dumb cookie. You see me hit, you see me run. When I kick and pass, we'll have more fun. I can dance, you will see. The others, they all learn from me. I didn't come here looking for trouble. I just came to do the Super Bowl shuffle. One, two,
You're listening to The Mike Muse Show.